Hello everyone, welcome back, and today we are working on this Corgi Toys James Bond Aston Martin. So this was made in 1965 and it has suffered a lot of damage. So as you can see, all the functions are broken and the ejector seat is missing. So the functions, they are still present, but you can't press them in anymore. So they always stay outside. I'm not sure why this is like that, and I already got the feeling that this might need a lot of spare parts and it's gonna go really expensive. So luckily the car itself wasn't that expensive, it was less than 5 quid. But now let's get started. So here we got it. It's looking like James Bond really destroyed it. So as you can see, the functions, you can still press them in, but they don't stay inside, so they stay outside all the time, and the top has gone in there, and yeah, so it's all basically broken. Also, the suspension mechanism is probably broken because the rear axle is in too far. But now let's drill it apart. So this one had a really small rivet. It was smaller than of some 1/64 scale cars, but I managed to put a screw in there anyway. So, and here we got it already apart. So as you can see, the rear axle falls out immediately. So I already thought that would happen because the suspension mechanism was broken, and there are a lot of parts missing on there. And there's also a function that's related to the suspension mechanism which is broken, so I'm gonna have to get a new one of these. And I'm putting all the parts in this container because I really don't want to lose any one of those parts, because yeah, I think this is going to be expensive enough. I don't need to put myself some extra work on my list. So here, this is the gun on the front there. It's really easy to take out, and in general I was surprised of how less parts there were. So I thought there were like 100,000 pieces, but there weren't that many pieces, and I was really surprised how they managed to do all those functions with such a little amount of parts. I mean, don't understand me wrong, there were a lot of parts, but I expected it to be worse. So as you can see, the exhaust hooks into the bulletproof shield, and there's a little metal piece, and this metal piece is bent, so it doesn't push the exhaust back anymore, and that's probably why this function is broken. So when I put this car back together, I will put it in the other way around so that it's not bent anymore. And now this is the interior. The ejector seat is broken off and the seat retainer is missing too. But luckily you can buy a lot of parts for this car on Steve Flowers Model Supplies, because he has a lot of parts for vintage Corgis, including this, and they are not cheap, but they're also not hyper expensive. So you can see the windshield is in good shape, and I'm quite happy about that. And now we get a single body anymore. So this body has a lot of pitting on there, and that's why I'm going to have to put a lot of filler on there, and now we're going to repaint it in the classic gold color. Well, I know the real James Bond vehicle was actually silver, but Corgi made it gold. I'm not sure why. Maybe because the movie it was in was called Goldfinger, so they just decided to paint it gold. And I decided to paint it gold too because I wanted to make this as original as possible. And also I like it in gold because the chrome details are visible much better when it's gold, because if not, everything is just silver, and that looks a bit of strange. It looks good on a real car, but it looks strange on a die-cast car. So that's why I've gone for the gold again. So this is Tamiya gold, it's metallic gold, and I'm just spraying it on. It went on really nicely, and in the end I finished it with some Tamiya clear coat. I put Tamiya clear coat on almost every car, and if you are not using it, I would strongly recommend you to use it because it's gorgeous. Since I'm using it, I was almost always happy with my paint job. Turns out much shinier. Well, it's not super cheap, but I think it's worth the money. So now we got it all dried. Of course, we sprayed the top insert too. And now the fun part, which is painting the details. And there in the back you can see a brown car. It's 1/64 scale. And if you want to, have a guess in the comment section. What is it? And I'm always using this water-based Vallejo paint. And there are two reasons why. First, it's really nice. And second, it's water-based, which means you can wipe it away if you paint it on the wrong spot, because I have used a pen in the past, but with the pen paint it's always like you get it on your fingers and then there's a fingerprint on your car, and if this happens with this paint you can just wipe it away with a wet towel as long as it isn't dry, and you can't do that with other paint. So I strongly recommend this because you don't have to be afraid to paint wrong, because if it goes wrong, just wipe it away and you can't ruin your car basically. So that's really a nice part of those paints, yeah. So as I said, on this car I'm only going to paint in the details that were painted in originally. And yeah, because I just wanna to do a really original restoration on this and don't do a custom. Because I've always wanted one of these in good condition, but if they are in good condition, I mean, the prices go up to the moon, I think. So now I'm going to paint in the rear parts, and I've also painted in the rear lights, and because I think they were painted in on the original too. And also for some reason back then they painted in the number plate silver, so I'm going to paint that into. But now the worst part, which is the reassembly, I've also repainted the base, and I've bought some new tires for this thing because they are not expensive. And I thought, hey, I mean this wasn't cheap, so I'm also going to put on new tires because they're really not so expensive. So I'm putting in the axle. On this point I had to pay attention because for some reason one axle is shorter than the other and you have to put them in the right position. And now I'm going to place the lever on there. Now this is actually the front one, I believe. Yeah, it is. And now I've ordered a new suspension unit. And there was actually one hole missing on the suspension unit, so I had to drill this out, but otherwise it was nice. It's a nice flexible plastic and it's of a great quality, and I recommend it to you. It's not cheap, but it does its job, and I mean I think it costs $5, which is kind of a lot of money. Usually my entire car is priced at, don't know, €1 are the prices for most of the cars I buy, and this one was a little more expensive, but it was also a really nice car. Now I'm just going to put this in there, and I fixed the suspension unit with glue. Now the windshield, and now there's the tricky part, which is the interior. I would always recommend you to reassemble the car with all the functions released, because if you don't do it, the car could fly apart again if one of the functions comes out by accident. So this is the seat retainer. I had to modify it because it didn't fit properly. Not sure if my car is a variation or if it doesn't fit to any car, but it wasn't hard to modify and I got there in the end. And now I first put in the interior and now I'm going to put in the machine gun, but you could also put in first the machine gun, doesn't matter. And don't forget the spring in there. So my advice would be to first put the spring onto the machine gun and then stick it in there. But as I said, it was very hard to figure out all the clues that you needed to put this car back together. And it took me really a lot of time. And the first two assemblies I didn't do on camera, and this is probably my fifth assembly. And now I'm actually not too bad anymore at putting this thing together. I managed to put this thing together in under 10 minutes now, but it was a lot of training. Yeah, so now I'm just putting the bulletproof shield in. There's a little piece where it can slide in on the interior, so that's why you should put in the interior first. Now just put in this part. And now in the end I'm going to put in the passengers too. Well, I have to say I should have had to put them in first before I put this in, so I had to take it all apart. So here we are again, and I fitted the exhaust too, and now we're going to have to put this thing together, and that was almost the hardest part, I think, because it's kind of hard because if you put this thing together, you have to pay attention that all the levers are out at the maximum position, and that's very hard. Maybe it's also because I have a reproduction seat retainer in there, because the lever would always hook in behind the lever, and so it won't push it out again to release the function. But I got there in the end, so this is what we started with. All broken functions, missing passenger and missing James Bond, and really scuffed up, so really looking really bad, I think. And yeah, it wasn't that expensive to obtain the car, but the spare parts were quite expensive. And here we go again. So I think I quite like it. Something I'd like to change is that I'd like to give the wire wheels a coating with some Vallejo paint, because I think they look too dark and you can't see them properly. But otherwise I'm quite happy. The roof won't close properly, but I think this is a common situation on those cars, because Bare Metal HW, had the same issue on his. And now I'm going to show you the functions, I think. So there we go. This is it on the kitchen table there. Then now first let's release the machine gun. Comes out there. Yeah, this is how it works. And yeah, I'm gonna have to press them in. So there we go. And now the bulletproof shield goes in nicely too. And now the highlight, which is of course the ejector seat. And we're going to have to put in our bad guy in there. So this bad guy has to sit in exactly this position, because if not, his knees when you release the function, his knees will touch the end of the roof, and that's not going to be nice for the bad guy. So now let's release the function, and there we go, it's away. And yeah, now I can search this bad guy, and actually it went into the fruit bowl. You can see it in there. So we're quite happy that I found it so quickly. And you should always release the function as long as the top is closed, because if not, there will be not enough resistance anymore, and the bad guy will fly over 3 meters far. So pay attention when you have one of these to not lose the bad guy. And yeah, this is what it is. So tell me what you think about it in the comments. Tell me what I could improve. And if you like this, you could pay a visit to my channel. I think I'm going to be able to upload a couple more videos in the future, because I currently got some extra holidays due to the coronavirus, because I live in the north of Italy. And yeah, this is it. So feel free to subscribe and leave a comment. So see you next time.